everybody. I'm Dee Lieber, urban fantasy author, and I was supposed to be going to a convention last weekend, but I couldn't make it, or was being safe and didn't go. And I was supposed to be doing a reading, so I thought that I would share the reading with you guys when you're all holed up in your house, being safe and washing your hands. Hopefully, it's of my new book, Once in a Black Moon, which is a time travel fantasy romance. This is my cat Yin. She's going to sit with me and read, apparently. So first I'm going to read the back and tell you guys a little bit about what it's about, and then I'm going to read part of chapter 2 for you. So here's what it says. Chicago journalist Erin Nichols isn't about to give up when she's fired for writing an expose. But when a combination of murder, magic, and celestial events transports her through time and space to 1900 Western Canada, City Hall corruption becomes the least of her worries. But the past isn't any safer. Awakening to learn she may be the victim of some unknown crime, Erin takes shelter with the local Mountie, the picture of upright Canadian fortitude. As tragedy stalks the nearby First Nation reserve, Erin learns from a Romanian mystic that magic is dying and the Fae are turning to their darker natures to survive. While the reserved and sexy Mountie helps her navigate a time in which she doesn't belong, the mysterious and seductive conjurer helps her try to find a way home. As they alight feelings and desires Erin never knew she was capable of, she begins to wonder where she truly belongs. So, that's kind of what it's about. I'm going to read part of chapter 2. This is right when Erin wakes up in 1900 Canada. So she's waking up. She doesn't necessarily know everything that's going on. I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but I'm going to stop at like a natural point. So here we go. Chapter 2. Thwack, thwack, thwack. What is that sound? Is Brian doing something weird again? I strained my ears. Besides the repetitive sound, it was way too quiet. There were no car or train sounds. I couldn't hear Mrs. McTim's television upstairs or the college students Chad and Mike blaring their heavy metal next door. All at once I remembered being pushed in front of a train. Am I in the hospital? But no beeping monitors, sterile smells, or bright lights shining through my eyelids answered my fears. Just silence and the distant thwack, thwack. I took a tentative breath, expanding my lungs. It didn't hurt as I'd expected. I twitched my fingers and toes. They seemed to work just fine. Finally, I squinted my eyes open. The ceiling was rustic wood, and 4 empty coat hooks hung just above the headboard of the bed I was laying on. Seeing light from the corner of my eye, I turned my head toward it. The small room had another bed near the window, an iron stove in one corner, and a small table with 2 chairs in the other. The walls were made of the same rustic wood as the ceiling. Outside, the repetitive sound stopped. A few moments later, the door opened to reveal a man carrying an armful of wood. A scarlet coat and Stetson hat announced his profession. What the shit? A Mountie! I gaped, jolting upright. My joints ached, and my skin smarted as though I was covered in bruises. I see you're awake. How are you feeling? The Mountie asked. Who are you? Where am I? How did I get here? My panicked voice sounded unfamiliar in my ears. He walked over to the corner and stacked the wood near the stove. You must have hit your head pretty hard there. I'm Constable Delaforet. You're in Farlock. As for how you got here, I found you in the forest near the barracks, half-clothed, unconscious, and chilled to the bone. I carried you in here. Farlock? Alberta? I eyed the Mountie, squinting suspiciously as he removed his hat and placed it on the table. His steady voice sounded as though he was trying to calm a frightened animal, and his light blue eyes were soft with pity. His brown hair was tousled from his hat, and his face was shadowed by what looked like 2 days' stubble. He seemed to be in his mid-20s, around my age. I took in his strong, broad shoulders and solid frame, and I knew I wouldn't make it past him if he tried to stop me. I was unconscious in a forest in Canada after I got hit by a train in Chicago? I looked under the blanket at what I was wearing. He said I was half naked. I wore what seemed to me to be pajamas. A white cotton capris with lace cuffs, a short-sleeved chemise. What the? Okay. Obviously this isn't real. I must be in a coma somewhere. I nodded to myself before swinging my feet out of bed. You should rest, miss, Constable Delaforet advised as I got to my feet. When the blanket fell away to reveal my pajamas, he cleared his throat and averted his eyes. I'm fine, I assured him. I mean, what can happen in a coma dream anyway? I marveled at how vivid everything was. It didn't feel at all like a dream. Then again, I'd never been in a coma before, so maybe it was normal. I took a few steps toward the Mountie, amazed at the feeling of the cold floorboards underneath my feet. Delaforet instinctively reached out to steady me when I wobbled a little. His hands were warm on my shoulders. Miss, I really must insist you rest until you're well. At the very least, you can't go out in your undergarments. Undergarments? What kind of coma dream is this? Tell me, Dudley, what year is it in this coma-created world? His eyebrows pulled together in concern. Miss, this is very much the real world. We just celebrated the turn of the new century. It is 1900. Please, it's clear you're disoriented. I allowed him to lead me back to bed. 1900, huh? My subconscious is amazing. Everything is so detailed. I stared at Delaforet's profile as he tucked my legs under the blankets. Have I seen him somewhere before? I've heard that your brain never dreams faces it hasn't seen. Where would I have seen such a hot guy? I feel like I'd remember that. A movie? Well, since this is a dream, I can do whatever I want, right? I grinned mischievously and grabbed the front of Delaforet's red tunic. He turned to me, eyes wide with surprise. I leaned up and kissed him full on the mouth. It had been a while since I'd kissed a man. I put all my pent-up passion into it. His lips were soft and warm. They sent a thrill through me, my body heating in an instant. He gently distanced himself from me. I breathed hard, my eyes wide as the blood drained from my face. There's no way. It feels too real, and I've never been rejected in a dream before. But how is it possible? Miss, he said gently, you're distressed. You should rest. If not kissing me back and pulling away hadn't made his rejection clear, his unmoved mask, as he called me crazy, certainly did. How can I rest? I'm more than a century in the past in another country, and I just kissed a complete stranger. Calm down, Aaron, calm down. This guy helped you, right? And as he said, he brought me in here when I was in trouble. Even when I threw myself at him, he didn't respond. He's a Mountie, for Christ's sakes. He's a police officer. I'm safe with him. I tried to swallow my panic and took a few slow, deep breaths. After watching me calm myself, Delaforet asked, Do you know who you are? I nodded, peeking over at him. Aaron Nichols, I mumbled. Do you know how you came to be in the woods, Miss Nichols? No. All right. Do you know where you're from? Chicago. An American. Chicago is a long way from here. Do you know why you might be here? I'd love to know that. Any ideas, Universe? I sighed, but I can't tell him I'm from the 21st century. I don't remember, I said. He nodded gently. I'm sure it will all come back to you in time, he soothed. Can you tell me anything else about yourself? Do you remember your name and where you're from? Do you have a family? Just my mother. Mom is going to be distraught when she can't find me. And I guess Brian will notice I'm gone eventually. Brian is your brother, or... He trailed off suggestively. Is he asking if Brian is my boyfriend or husband? Of course, at my age in 1900, I would have been an old maid. Then again, I did just kiss him, which is definitely not proper, even by modern standards. Maybe he thinks I'm a prostitute. Oh, jeez. The confidence I'd had while I thought this was a dream crumbled under the reality of the situation. My face and neck flushed in the fiercest blush of my entire life. I totally just kissed a complete stranger, likely the most attractive stranger I've ever met. Brian is my roommate, I mumbled, averting my gaze and trying to not think about the kiss. Yeah, Aaron. Good one. I'm sure it's not suspicious that you're living with a man. Delafiore nodded thoughtfully. It's difficult to afford housing in Chicago on a journalist's pay. Brian is a friend from college. He's a software developer. He's a writer of sorts. I rambled. You're a journalist. I nodded. Perhaps you were sent by a newspaper to write a story. That would explain why I'm so far from home, I mused, grabbing hold of the explanation. Could you be a travel writer? Since the railroad was completed and the hotel opened, there have been quite a few newsmen who've come to town. I nodded. It's as good a cover story as any. That sounds familiar. I think you're right. Of course, that doesn't explain how you came to be in the forest in such a state. You could be the victim of foul play. He eyed me gently. I think perhaps you should stay in the barracks until you're well enough to remember. Since the railroad was finished, I'm the only Mountie stationed here, so you need not fret about inconveniencing anyone. It's not like I have anywhere else to go. He seemed safe enough. I smiled sheepishly and nodded. Thank you very much. After we'd agreed I'd stay with Delafiore, he left to go get breakfast for us. He'd told me to stay in bed, but I ignored that directive entirely. I slipped out from under the blanket and moved toward the window. As I passed a pitcher and wash basin over on a cabinet, a light flashed off a small shaving mirror. When I saw my reflection, I cried out and rushed toward the mirror. What the hell? I demanded of the blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman in the mirror. I blinked hard a few times, hoping my green eyes would appear. Bringing my shaking fingertips to my cheeks, I caressed my new face. My hair was long, much longer than I ever would have bothered with. It was blonde where it should have been brown. My face seemed a few years younger, and my usually warm skin seemed paler. I hadn't noticed before that I wasn't wearing any glasses, but I could see perfectly without them. I looked down at my new body. I was slightly thinner than before, having none of my city-walking leg muscles. I was also a few inches taller. I grabbed my breasts and found they were smaller. Jesus Christ, I cursed, in a voice not my own. I'd noticed I'd sounded strange before, but I thought it was panic that made my voice higher. What the fuck is happening to me? I looked away from the mirror, my stomach flopping and my head spinning. Closing my eyes and bracing my hands against the cabinet, I took long, steadying breaths. After the feeling had passed, I continued to the window, determinedly avoiding my reflection. I knew I was in Alberta, so I'd expected to see mountains, but nothing had prepared me for the breathtaking sight that lay before me. The snow-topped mountains towered over a clear, frozen lake. The rounded rocks on the shore had small patches of snow between them. Evergreens flanked the sides of the lake, dwarfed by the surrounding peaks. The clear sky dyed everything blue. Wow, was the only exclamation my brain could come up with. I couldn't pry myself away from the view, not even when Constable Delafiore returned with a basket of food. He frowned at my complete disregard for his orders, but set the basket on the table. I brought chicken and dumplings, he informed, unpacking a pot, bowls, and spoons. I reluctantly left the window and went to the table. Deliberately averting his eyes, he said, "We need to find you some clothes if you're going to be out of bed. We can go down to the church to see if they have any extra dresses they can spare, but for now..." He crossed to the foot of the bed I'd been lying in and opened a trunk. Rummaging around, he continued, I believe Sub-Constable Taylor left some things behind. They will likely be too big, but here they are. He pulled out a buckskin pair of pants, a buttoned shirt, and a coat. I'm sorry to ask a lady to wear men's clothes, but it's far better than you freezing. I took the clothes from him, and he went toward the door. I'll get more wood for the stove, he said delicately. Well, that's all for now. I do hope you guys are staying safe out there, and be sure to find out more about Once in a Black Moon. You can get it pretty much wherever you can get ebooks or even paper books online. And if you want to know more about me or my other books or this book in particular, there's a book trailer and everything where my audiobook narrator did a much better job of reading a different passage. So if you're curious about the more magical aspect of the story, you can go to my website, www.dlieber.com, spelled like this, and you can hear that there, as well as doing all kinds of other stuff. So like this video, I guess, give me a comment or a thumbs up, and hopefully you guys are all staying safe out there. See you later.